Okay, we're starting to record. So this is the Object-Oriented Programming in Java CS3340 Final Exam Review for summer 2013. We got this all documented. So this is a new exam, brand new. It has 25 multiple choice questions. See, now I gotta have my spelling. So you gotta see my spelling in this thing. Multiple choice. I should have just said MC. 1 point each. And then we have 2 programming questions. 5 points, so 5 points each. 2 programming questions. I'll make this look good. I guess I could have spelled out points. All right. So let me go over the subject areas, and what I'm going to do is just make a list of each one of the topic areas, because I know there's going to be some duplicate topic areas. I'm not going to go question by question. Well, I will go question by question, but I'll put them into categories, and we'll write some categories here so you know what to study. How's that sound? This is the first time in a long time I've actually asked multiple choice questions. It's because I ran out of stuff to give you, because on the midterm, you guys did a lot of programming. The midterm was 100% programming. And a lot of people liked it. Some people didn't like it. I don't know. It's kind of boring. What am I going to do? Have you write the whole thing over again? You already wrote an interface. You already wrote an abstract class. You already inherited a class from a class. You already did all this other stuff, right? And on the multiple choice part of it, you know, it's a little bit easier to write. You know, you just circle. You don't actually have to write source code. Although you do have one page, will you? Will, and I'll show you about that one in a few minutes. But for the most part, it's called multiple guess. Only problem is the multiple guess might actually be harder than writing the source code, because some of the questions might be, what are you talking about? So, as a rule number 1, it says select one best answer. You're going to see multiple items that look like they're good answers. Select one best answer. So one of them is going to be better than the rest of them.
No, all of
one. No, all of the above. Well, actually, none of them say all of the above on it at all, believe it or not. There's no all of the above or none of the aboves. It's all questions. So what are the questions on? The first one is on the concept, well, actually, number 1, number 2. Work together. So, know what a class and object are. So they're concept questions about, the exam is heavily object-oriented focused. So, heavy focus on object orientation. So you want to know what a class and an object are. So here, know basic OO concepts. I was saying, what are basic OO concepts? Well, you could say concepts. So I got the API acronym. Abstraction, polymorphism, inheritance, encapsulation. I use it in all my classes. After a while, people are going to use pi universally around the world. Maybe after they watch this video, who knows. But hopefully complete strangers aren't watching it, just people taking this test. Otherwise, those people are really bored. I was talking about people reading manuals earlier. If you're bored enough to read a manual, if you're bored enough to listen to this video, and you're not in this class, there's something wrong, yeah? Ah, all right, so you are, let's put it here. This is the lovely part about writing this out. Abstraction. Oops, did I spell that right? So we do it like this here. No. There we go. See, that's why I like computers. Polymorphism. There we go. Inheritance. Got that one right. And encapsulation. Encapsulation. There we go. That's what a pi stands for. The first 2 questions are on abstraction, actually. The first 2 questions, know the basic concepts about, this is abstraction. The questions number 1 and number 2 are on the abstraction concepts. Arbitration. Abstraction. That's close enough. Abstraction concept. And I'm going to spend most time spell checking and correcting my writing. Sorry about that. I'll try and speed it up here. So number 1 and 2 are on abstract concepts. So although it says the word class in one question and the word object in the other one, it is on making objects and creating classes. And it also actually doesn't cover anything past that. So question number 3, and this is a, here, we'll put it down here. Actually, this really isn't, let's just go with this for a second. Okay. This is a basic theme throughout the entire exam. So paste. Know the basic OO concepts up high. There we go. So 1 is what are class? Okay, so this is really 2 now. And these are bullet points. Maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I probably shouldn't number them. I'll just, yeah, they're points. So number 2. It's not question 2 because number 1 bullet point is really covering questions 1 and 2. So number 3 is on, I forgot already, is on objects references. Huh?
So this is getting confusing.
I know. References. So now I'm going to forget about all the no stuff. References, and object creation. So let me put a little example down here. Person P and then we have person A is equal to new person. The new as opposed to the not new, we can make them 2 different ways. We can reference it, because here I can say P is equal to A. So P is equal to A. So I have an object reference, and then I have an object reference with an object instantiation. I've created a new person. So unfortunately, what ends up happening on multiple choice tests is that you're stuck with vocabulary. And what are we really talking about? But I try to stick as basic as possible. I did not stick unfamiliar words. The word reference is about as unfamiliar as you're going to get. It's not really unfamiliar. You know what a reference is, because I told you to create reference of objects in assignments. So the wording that's used in the assignments is a good gauge. If it's mentioned in an assignment, that's the vocabulary. So I'm not going to have you like a such and such object of a such and such type. And you go, what? I've never heard of that. I'm not going to ask you questions like that. But the multiple choice question that appears on the page for number 3 is having to do with this reference to an object. Actually, in the question it says reference to an object. So it's definitely regarding that concept. Number 4 is on real world objects. So that kind of, we're still looking at this here. We're still looking at abstraction, and we're still looking at the class and the object as a centralized theme. I'm sorry?
What do you mean by real world?
Say that one more time.
What do you mean by real world objects?
Real world objects. It goes into the abstraction concept. Do we really have people that live on computers? That's a real world object. Person represents the real world, and we're defining it in a computer, or I put it in a text window on a computer. Is it an object? It's actually more philosophical than anything else, but it's representing a real world entity or an object. That's what I meant by that. It's referring to abstractions of concepts. We have objects that are persons, places, or things. They usually represent real world components. So a sales invoice, a work experience, all that stuff is an object as well. It's a concept. Because we have controller objects that control interfaces and things as well. So just imagine the object concept. Unfortunately, I can't really give you that much details on it without reading the question to you. Objects, let me review a little bit here. I'll put it under here. Objects. Actually, I'll ask you guys, what are the 3 components of an object? All objects have them. Uh-oh. Give me 3, if I had a multiple choice question, and there's no multiple choice question like this, but if I had a multiple choice question, and I said, what are the 3 characteristics of an object? All objects All objects contain them. Here's the good part about multiple choice. You may not remember them. But if I wrote down as an example, identity, states, and behaviors, that might look familiar. If not, it should look familiar now. Or soon. Identity, states, and behaviors. Identity is the name of the object. The states are the data members that the object is holding on to. The behaviors are the methods. So they say object has, going back to PLC, objects from object orientation. It's an abstract data type. So it has both data and a process abstraction associated with it. The data abstraction is the states. The process abstraction are the behaviors. So objects have both.
Which one is identity?
Identity is the name of the object. It's our identity. It's what we're referring to as a chair or as a person. The states are the data that we're keeping of each one of the objects. And the behaviors are they're methods. So states are also called attributes. Attributes of objects are describing the object. In terms of a state, if it's a car, we have gas fill, gas not fill, or gas state. How many gallons of gas do we have? Is the car running? Is the car stopped? For behaviors, we have park the car, put the car in reverse, put the car in forward gear, or something of that nature. So what we're looking at then is the three components. So objects have, I'll put it in here so for those people who are reading this later, have three components. I don't know, it's misspelled. Let's see. Components. There we go. Identity, state, and behavior. Yeah?
Is that stuff in Deedle and Deedle text?
It is in the
Oh.
Deedle and Deedle text. It's also in all of the lectures. I made sure to pick questions that were in every single one of the lectures that I covered. Obviously, the PowerPoint lectures, we did not cover the ones that were under, and that's a good thing. Maybe I have internet access. Let's see. Oh, I have internet. This is just going berserk, I guess. Did that sneeze come from within the room? Oh. Is there somebody over there? Apparently so. Otherwise, there's a sneeze coming out of nowhere. Let's see. If we go into the lecture room, the person. Let's see. Object-oriented design is, just in case this is your first class meeting. Object-oriented design are the ones that we covered in this class. Well, there's a lot more people than I normally see, so I can joke like that. We actually covered, although they're not selected on this computer, that means I didn't touch them on this computer. We actually covered all 13 of them. So if it's in here, I covered it. It's part of the exam. It's only based on these lectures. I don't even have a copy of Deal and Deal. I loaned it to a student, and I have not received it back. So I don't have a copy. So I had to use these lectures as a basis to go, what did we cover? We covered this. We covered that. This is, I'm talking still around lecture 1. So this is the category. It's in the object-oriented programming category. This one here you can skip, unless you need help programming. If you need help programming, then come on in here and you can have this how to write source code lectures. There's some cool stuff in there, though. It's not as much concepts as it is how to write the code. And but that's where you're going to find the goodies that you're going to want to review. Otherwise, Google this stuff. I'm giving you all the topics. You know, find a Java book. Make sure you know all the topics. So I'm not going to go chapter by chapter in the Deedle and Deedle book or anything like that. But anyway, so question number 4, I think I was on. No, 5. No, 4. 4 has something to do with this concept of the identity, the states, and the behaviors. It's a question related to one of those components. You know, what in terms of what does an object have, and what are the components of an object? And if you're given a list of information, would you find this thing inside of an object, not inside of the object? Kind of stuff like the characteristics of objects is what that's going for. So that was question number 4, and I'm recording this for those people who just came in late. For that one person who just came in late. I'm just kidding. It's actually for a person who's not even here who asked me to record it as well. So he's not here because he wants me to record it, or wants me to record it because he's not here. Chicken before the egg kind of thing. Anyway, this dry group. All right, number 5. Number 5, we have, it's another referencing question. So it falls up into this category here of references and object creation. But it's not an object creation, it's a reference. So let's make a new category out of this. This is going to be number 3. Referencing environment, passing parameters, pointers. We don't have pointers in Java. You know, which is actually kind of funny, because I used one of these questions actually. It's comprehensive, by the way. The questions go for the entire course. I used this question, not this question, I used a different question that was worded, and it's the same category. I put it on the midterm, and it says, you know, and this is what I was trying to tell you guys last time that you were here. I said, yeah, I put questions on it. It says, the pointer usage in Java is passed by reference in the context of the blah, blah, blah. And then you have A, B, C, D, and then you have none of the above. And they all sound good. Problem is we don't have pointers in Java. So there's no pointer usage. So none of those things are correct. So if I made a, you know, if I said, you know, the Java language is restricted to only the creation of 3 instances. And which one of these instances would you pick if you only had a choice of 3? That the requirement of Java, when you read the questions, a good half of these questions are wrong. They're giving you bad information. So if you read the bad information and you don't use the bad information, like you don't know that you can make more than just 3 references. You can make as many references as you want. You're not stuck to just 3. Then you're stuck thinking, oh my God, I only have 3. Which one am I going to do? A, B, or C? You know, the pressure's on. And then number 4 is like, I wouldn't make a reference at all. Java's not restricted to 3 references. Oh, there you go. But you answered it before you got to the 4th one because you didn't read all the options. Read all the options. So in order to pass this, know the material. Don't learn the material by reading the questions. Which, if you don't know the material, the people, because if you just know C++, for example, and you're taking a Java test, there's a couple questions that relate to overloading operators. When did we cover that? We didn't cover that in this class. It's not possible in Java. But the words, when you overload an operator in Java, or you'll see overloaded operator as one of your answers. It's like, wow, okay. You don't pick that answer, but you're not going to pick the answer because you're not going to know about the language because you think that that's actually, if this were a C++ test, that would be the right answer. But whereas it's not C++, this is Java. So sometimes some of the questions are, do you know the difference between C++ and Java? So if you're a C++ and a Java programmer, answer the questions for Java. This is a Java class. Some of them will be true for C++, will be false for Java, and the other way around. Some features don't exist. As an example, do we have multiple inheritance in Java? No, it's a single line inheritance. We have multiple inheritance in C++. So if you're answering a question about multiple inheritance in Java, when you're using multiple inheritance in Java, you know right there you're on the wrong track. But one of the answers might actually be correct, but we don't have multiple inheritance in Java. So it'll be worded like, in order to accomplish this, which is actually kind of true, for multiple inheritance to work in Java, you must implement multiple interfaces. It's not one of the questions, but that's actually how you're going to accomplish it, by using interfaces. But we don't have interfaces in C++. So the C++ person would be thinking about inheriting from multiple classes. The Java person would be thinking about, well, how am I going to get around this? If I want to inherit from more than one class, how are you going to inherit from more than one class? In Java, you're going to use an interface abstraction. Or you're going to build a hierarchy of a single line, and then you're going to incorporate interfaces and then object references to make them like other objects, so that you can have them all work together. So. And we know that everything in Java is dynamic. Everything is a late bound dynamic. Everything's a reference. All the passing techniques are references, which is the exact opposite of C++. C++, everything's static. We have to make it reference by using a pointer. We don't have any pointers. In Java, everything's a reference anyway. So the word reference shows up all over the place, which is why I put it here twice. Referencing environment, passing parameters. When you pass an object to a method, or you pass an object to another object, are you passing it by value or by reference? It's actually a trick question in Java. When you pass an object as a parameter to a method call or to a function, are you passing it by value or by reference? It's a trick question. It's a trick question. You're passing it by value. It's accepted by reference. Everything's a reference in Java. There's no value. There's no such thing as a value. Everything's dynamic in Java. Everything's dynamically allocated. There's no such thing as static data in Java. So when you pass a parameter, you're passing it by value. You think you're passing it by value. You're coming in as an object reference. However, we have shallow and deep copy created automatically by the JVM. We don't have a copy constructor in Java. We don't have a destructor in Java. But there's questions that say copy constructor on them. That's what I'm trying to tell you. It's meant, if you don't know Java, it's meant to trip you up. Because it's very, you look at some of the questions and you go, is this a Java or a C++ class? Why am I reading a question that has the word, I'm looking at it right now, copy constructor? Do I have a copy constructor in Java? No. Anyway, know the parts of Java. If you've written a program in Java, you know what I'm talking about. You know the capabilities of Java, how Java differs. The exam is not focused on differs. There's no questions that say the difference between Java and C++ or the difference between Java and that. No questions on that at all. It's just the wording of the questions. Some of them are actually kind of humorous. When you read it, you go, oh, that's funny. So, when I read it, I think it's funny. You're going to probably curse me when you read it. I'm going to maybe laugh at you cursing me. I don't know. Yep. I'm definitely going to be laughing at some of the answers. No, you'll laugh at some of these answers. They're kind of funny. All right, so I left on number 5. So referencing environments, passing parameters, pointers. Let's just add this number 4 because I mentioned it. And so use of C++ constructs such as operator overloading. Operator overloading. The house is full. There's no more seats for you. Overloading. That's just wrong, I know. Should be reserved seating. I don't know. I'm asking myself the same question. Operator overloading. Constructors. A copy constructor. You know, you're like, if you just walked in, you'd be like, am I in the right class? Copy constructor. Deconstructor. Don't fall for this. I don't know, I'm spelling constructors wrong. Constructor. I don't know, I had too many syllables in there. Deconstruct. Ors. Deconstruct. Let's just put ors. I like ors. Let's see. All those things that happen in C++ that don't happen in Java. Pointers, copy constructors. They're written all over the exam. Just know what's in Java, what's not in Java. I guess that's a good way of saying it in summary. What's in Java, what's not in Java versus, but you don't have to know the comparisons. All right, so let's see, moving on to question number 6. This is all being recorded, by the way, so you can listen to what you missed. And I'm also making a little notes to self as I'm doing this, because otherwise this video would be boring. So it's really just audio recording. Okay, we got a couple questions, and number 6 is an example of one for which we have a programming language syntax in the question. So you're given a line of code. Actually, let me read you the question. It says, examine the following, colon, blah, 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 blah. A, blah, blah, blah is a blah, blah, blah. B, blah, blah, blah is not a blah, blah, blah. C, blah, blah, blah makes a blah, blah, blah. You know, get the point? Blah, blah. Examine the following, blah, blah, blah. It's a line of code. The blah, blah is a line of code. It's asking you what it's doing. So you don't have to write as much code on this exam, but you do have a couple questions that are showing you lines of code. So be able to identify and analyze what Java code is doing. Ooh. We also have this kind of a question. Which of the following, I can read most of this question actually, which of the following is the correct way to blah, blah, blah? And then A, B, C, and D are source code examples.
Number 7.
That's number 7. So I put that into source code, be able to identify and analyze what Java code is doing. So if you don't have to write it, but you have to look at it and say, what is this doing? And then you have to look at which is the best way to construct a blah, blah, blah. And you're given options for how to make the blah, blah, blah. And you have to pick which one of these blah, blahs is the correct blah, blah. Blah. Number 8. Unless we have questions. No, I don't know what blah, blah. Blah, blah is different context, has different meaning. I asked the same question. Let's see. Class versus instance variables and methods. Class, I'll put the here word static. Static versus instance variables. Really, whether fields or data members, whatever you want to call them. And methods. Refresh your memory on the rules. And how to use these concepts. Obviously, you're going to know how to make instance. You're going to know how to use instance variables. You're going to know how to use instance methods. It's the static stuff. It's the class level stuff. That will trip you up. There are some rules, especially if it comes with static data members or some rules with static data members. I'm not going to tell you what they are, but look them up. One in particular that everyone missed, about 90%, no, I shouldn't say 90, people did well on the midterm, actually. People did really well on the midterm. Where people lost points was on the question where they had to change a static data member that was private, that was in a base class or an abstract class, I believe, if that was correct. You had to change it. So some people didn't create a static method to do that with. Some people tried to change it other ways, access it other ways, change the description of the question so that it met their needs. Here you can't change the description of the question. You're given the question and it's worded a certain way. You have to say how it's worded, look at the line of code you're given, and then answer a question about how you would do it. And there's only one right way to doing it. So know the differences between static versus instance methods and member functions or data members. That one was 8, but I want to talk about 10 first. 10 actually has, no one's going to miss this, I hope, unless you didn't show up and you didn't watch the video and you did not pay attention to what I'm saying. It has the word operator overloading. The question has operator overloading in it. So just understand that that's not part of the Java programming language. This one's actually got some funny answers to it.
9.
All right, number 9. Let's go back to 9. I'm sorry, I'm never going to get through with this. This is actually kind of humorous. It's on garbage collection. Garbage collection. I saw it. Let me hold on. I saw a typo that I need to fix. We don't have destructors. We have automatic collection that happens for us. And it's on the concepts. It's one of those trick questions that has a delete in it. We don't have a destructor in objects when we delete something. The question's going to show you. It's going to show you a line of code, and you're going to say, "What got removed?" It's a garbage collection question. Know the concept because there's a hybrid. This theme is actually in a couple more questions. It's obvious you don't have a destructor. It's obvious you don't have to delete anything. Well, let me just say, do we have a delete? The question is talking about deleting an object. The programmer deleting an object. No. It doesn't happen. It's not as an existent. It's one of those. Know that we have garbage collection. Know that the programmer does not delete objects, does not do anything with it. You're going to read the question, and if you're looking at this and you're taking a C++ exam, you're going to get it right because you're going to select one of the objects, right? You think you're going to get it right, but you're going to get it completely wrong because we can't delete an object. The programmer never deletes anything. The garbage collector removes it for us. So know what a garbage collector is, what a garbage collector does. Garbage collection. So before you come into the test, don't write a bunch of C++ code. Before you come in to take the exam, finish up all your Java assignments. Have Java in your mind. Have Java source code in your mind, Java technique in your mind, and you'll ace this thing. Because you have to be thinking in Java to actually, because otherwise the syntax will look correct. It is valid C++ syntax used everywhere. With valid C, this could easily be a 2370 exam. Hybrid, both classes. Wrong answers, there's different answers for different classes, depending upon what subject you're actually studying. So know about garbage collection and know the fact that you have that, you don't delete objects. You have new though. Don't forget you actually have the word new in the language. You can actually allocate your own objects, you just don't deallocate. Garbage collector comes around and picks it up for you. In terms of garbage collection, I gave you, there was one piece of a lecture that went through the concept of the garbage collection. There's no, outside of that what I just told you, there's really, if you understand the concept, there's no vocabulary. You don't have to worry about sweeping versus reference counting versus all of the other stuff, which I didn't even give you. And Java actually uses a combination of a couple of different techniques. We didn't study that. We don't have to worry about that. From a programmer's perspective, if you're in the PLC class, you're thinking like a compiler designer. In the Java class, you're thinking like a programmer. So don't worry about the implementation of the garbage collector. It doesn't really matter. Okay, that's garbage collection. Number 11, so that was number 9. Number 10 was operator overloading. Number 11 is on abstract. So the abstract concept. We know that we have abstract classes. We have abstract methods. We know the rules because we did it on the midterm. If you did well on the midterm, you know those concepts. If you missed any of those programming questions, the concepts that I'm testing you on are in those programming questions from the midterm. So the things you did to create the abstract class, the things you did to take that class and inherit other classes from it and use an interface along with that and make those instances of the object. Although you don't have to write the source code, you're answering questions on the same topic areas. So abstract classes was covered on the midterm, abstract classes. So the abstract concept, aka, well, let's just put here, abstract classes and methods. Know how to use them, what they're used for, what they achieve, all the kind of the, you don't have to memorize all the rules. It's not like a trivia question. Everything's very straightforward. So number 11 is on abstract. Number 12 is on the use of the main method. So it's really the program design. Be familiar with the overall Java program design and use of the main method. You know you can't have multiple mains. You can only have one main. In this group of, if you put mains in every single one of your classes, you're going to come, which main do you want? Which program are you running? You can only run one main at a time. Main is the driver program. Is it too low? I see people stretching here. I'll move it up a little bit. Here, actually, maybe I can go up like this way. There we go. It's on the top, a little bit higher. So we know we only have one main, and that the main is the driver program, and it makes instances of all the other objects. The question is, are really good concepts. So. Questions about main? You can also feel free to ask questions about any of these concepts that you might not be familiar with. It's a pretty easy exam, actually. It's not too bad. It's very straightforward. It's humorous. You'll get a joke. You'll find some pleasure in some of these questions, maybe. Who knows? Number 13 is on access modifiers. Oh, maybe somebody's got allergies. What are we talking about? I.e., I'll put the line in here. Public, private, protected. What else we got? That's about it. The choices are pretty much the same. It has pretty much the same meanings as C++. There's nothing really fun I can do with that, except to ask you about defaults, or to what happens when you leave one out, or what happens when you use the keyword static with it. Does the static go before or after the public? Where does abstract, the word abstract comes into place? Is it public abstract void something, or is it abstract public void something? So know the order. Know when they are used and the proper order and the defaults. What's the default for data in an interface? Nothing. Data is never public. What did I say? What was the question I asked? Data in an interface?
No, what's default?
What's the default for data defined in an interface? Static final. Look at this stuff up. So let's put final in here too. Final, static. Well, this. Oh, wait a minute. Let's just not do that. Final and static are two different concepts. So let's go down here. I'm thinking off topic because there's another question that asked you about final. So know what final. You never make. Okay, so let me answer that question for you real quick here. Or let me clarify what I just said. You never make an instance of an interface. You can never have instance data in an interface. It never becomes part of an object. An interface doesn't define an object. It defines a contract that an object is abided by. And interfaces as well, maybe I should add interfaces next, don't have any implementations. There's no partial implementation in interface either. If you put data in there, it's final. It doesn't change. It's also static. It's class level. It's used by the class that adopts the interface. So just remember, if you can't make an instance of it, you can't have instance data. But you can make an instance of an abstract class further down the line. Abstract classes can have static data. It can have everything. It has everything that a real class has. There's no restrictions to it. So go on the internet, look it all up. Are you taking a picture of that? I'm recording it.
Oh.
Okay. It's okay. I'm like, that's just... Anyway, if you go, just do a Google search on it. It's all over the place. So you can't mess that up. Or go get the Deedle and Deedle book. Or it's also in the lecture notes. It's in the beginning part, where you'll find out, data is private, and public methods are public. So you can leave out the access modifiers. So if you left out an access modifier for a method, what would the default be? Public. If you had data that was defined in an interface, what would that be? Private. The data is always private anyway, but it's also final. So one of the questions is going to ask you something about final, static. So final, static. What does final mean? What does static mean? Know what final and static. Know what final and static mean and when or how they are used. Final never changes the value. Static creates a class level variable, like a counter or an ID or something. Let me put it here just in case I forget. Know the concept of an interface and why/how it's used. I put abstract class, abstract up here. Abstract classes and methods, that's an important one too. Okay, where was I? Number 13 was on the access modifiers. And this one is on one of the default behaviors, actually. Some of the questions, I'm sorry, some of the answers I just have to laugh. The 14 is also on access modifiers. Number 15 is one of these questions that has a textual description. I can read you part of it. Which of the following invokes blah, 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 blah on blah, 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 blah? A, B, C, or D. A, B, C, or D has source code. You're invoking something on something. There's also another one in here. I can't remember where it is, but it's for object usage, object referencing. That is a similar kind of question. All right, so that was number 15. Number 16 is on references of objects. Referencing objects, using objects, running instances, making instances of objects. You also want to be familiar with how to, well, I'm going to show you the programming stuff in a second or two, but the reference concept again. Number 17 is an easy one. It's on multiples versus single inheritance. You know, guys, I'm not going to be tripped up with that one. So. Number 18 is on the hierarchy inheritance. It's a hierarchical question. 13, be familiar with the concept of inheritance and object hierarchies. Oh, I spelled hierarchies right. Ah, that's a bonus. Bonus points. No, I spelled it right. I get bonus points. I get points for taking this test too. Let's see. Actually, I get paid for giving it to you. That's what more bonus could you get for that? Let's see. Actually, it's probably the department chair in that office over there, making a noise, sneezing, listening to what I'm saying all day. Like, who hired that person? Let's see. We got the object, subclassing and superclassing. The word subclass is actually in the sentence here, number 18. Number 18 is the one I was on. Actually, number 17 and 18. Number 17 and 18 are both on inheritance. In question number 18, which is the one I thought I was on, actually has the word subclass in the sentence of the question. Which saves me a time because I don't have to go back. Oh, number 19. So 17 and 18 are on the hierarchies objects. Number 19 has a special word in it. The special word in it is called super. I couldn't leave that word out. We also have this. Not in the same question, but it's in a different one. No. What? Super. And this mean and how they are used. When they're used, when they appear. What construct do they appear in? Super. What construct does super appear in? What are you talking about? Constructors created in inheritance? How about that one? Combine both of your answers. There you go. So usually the first line of the constructor is used to overload the constructors to call back, just explicitly call back from a previous base class constructor. Can you use it outside of the constructor? You can run super, or you can run super with parameters. No, you can't do it outside. Where are you going to put it? Where's the sucker going to show up? You could. Actually, you can. You can explicitly get at data by super dot. Like you could use this dot for data. But when you use this, you don't use it outside of the class. When you're going to get the same data outside of the class, you're going to go super dot. Hardly ever used because super's data is normally private. So you're not going to normally do it. You can do it, not very often. The question doesn't even ask you that. The question is involving a constructor in the use of super. Which you're going to know anyway because you know I'm going to ask you to overload or explicitly call a constructor when we get to the programming part. So just remember you're going to need to know super. And you're also going to need to know what this means and what this is used for. And how this is used. This is generally referring to this current object. You can return this as a reference to itself. And you can use this to refer to this as this first name, this last name, something like that. Super, yeah, you can go super dot first name, super dot last name. But if the data is private, why are you going to do that? Yeah. It's most commonly, there's no restrictions really on super. It's just a way of, it's a reference to super. Actually, you could return super from something. Hardly done. Why are you going to do it? It's like there's kind of like really odd cases that you're going to do something that way. But super doesn't have that many restrictions. Not as many restrictions as you think it would have. But anyway, not a trivia question. Just very straightforward. So number, where did super come into question? Oh yeah, this is number 19 has the word super in it. Number 20 is about abstract classes again. And then number 21 is on interfaces again. And number 22, oh my god, it's on abstract methods. Abstract methods and abstract classes. Lots of stuff on abstract and interfaces. Number 23 is on this P in the pie. So we got through A, abstraction. Abstract classes or abstraction. So polymorphism. Polymorphism. Oh, I spelled it right? No, I think my spell checker's turned off. That is right. Be familiar with the concept. So the question is going to ask you, which one is an example of polymorphism in the language? Overload constructor, A, or B, overload method. C, overload constructor, A and B. D, you have to pick which one you might think is an example. If you don't know what polymorphism is, well, I almost said that too, then you're not going to be able to figure out which one of those options is an example of it. We know that we can override and we can overload. When we override something, are we creating polymorphic behavior? 50-50 chance. When you override, okay, so let me put this here. Know concepts of overloading and overriding. Also, overwriting. If you like that word better, They actually mean two different things, but if it helps your understanding, this complements and is used in polymorphism. Neither ones of these two are. They're replacements. But if you think about the concept in the context that you're given in the question and in the reference that you're looking at, if it's an object itself that's been overwritten and turned into something, then the object, you might say from an object perspective that's polymorphic. If it's a method that's been overloaded, that's taking in multiple different parameters of different types, that's polymorphic in terms of its nature. Objects can transform, methods can transform and change, references can change. So technically it's referred to as overloading, but when we overload a constructor, we're creating a morph constructor. If we have a person and we have an employee, person has first name and last name, employee has employee ID number. I think we had this on the midterm or something. I don't know. Homework assignment, we did this. Then when we create instances of employees, we morph the person into an employee. We can take them back to an employee if we want. We overload the constructor when we make a polymorphic object that is an employee, but it's also a person. So we send the stuff back to person by overloading the constructor. Some people call it overloading. C++, they call it overloading or invoking, explicitly invoking a constructor. They all mean the same thing. When I say that, it means the same thing. You're explicitly using super to call a constructor from the base class. You're not going colon and calling the base class constructor. So know how to call a constructor from a base class, from a derived class back to a base. Hint, hint. And then that is complementing it. You're not replacing it. The base class constructor is still there. You can make a person. You can call the person constructor anytime you want. You can make an employee. You can call the employee constructor anytime you want. We don't have virtual in Java. Virtual is C++. Virtual created dynamic object instance data. So whatever one we created is what we got. So we seriously have information hiding in Java, because if we redefine data, we actually have two instances of the data, but one's hidden if we're in a different object level, because we get all copies of it, which is actually sort of different than C++. Not on the exam, but it's trivia. So we actually, that's why I say we actually have a difference between these two in Java. Not necessarily. They try to define a difference in C++ between those two, but it's really more relevant to Java. But overwriting or overwriting means to replace. Generically throughout the exam, just think of it that way. Overloading complements, doesn't replace anything. Okay, that was polymorphic behavior. Number 24, we're getting to the end. Number 24, number 25. Number 25, I'm going to read you the question. There's some blah blahs in it. Is the following a correct way to blah 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 blah? And then you're given a line of code. And then here's the problem with this question. Number A and number B start out, let me read you the question. No, comma, blah, blah, blah. B, no, comma, blah, blah, blah. Or C, yes, comma, blah, blah, blah. Or D, yes, comma, blah, blah, blah. So is the following a correct way to blah, blah, blah? No, but something. Or is it no, but something different? Or is it, so you have to do more than a yes or a no. You got to decide, okay, is it a yes or is it a no? And then what's the something that's going to come next to it, yeah? Has to do with a class definition. It's a class definition. You know, you define a class. Example of defining class, public, class, my class. Extend something, implement something. Number 24, I did number 25 first because that one is easier to explain. Number 24, it's a method question. It goes back to the method, the class and the method. Method class is static and non-static methods. Do I have it up here? Class versus instance methods. And how to use them. What was that? That's the first time I've heard my fan go off on this computer. It's really a heated discussion. That's all your 25 questions. We only have 2 questions left. But we will get out here early today. 26 and 27, because some people are still working on assignments. So I'll give you some extra time to work on your assignments. Number 25. Let me read you the question.
26.
Number 26. I'm sorry.
Blah blah or no blah
There's some, of course there's blah blahs.
blah? She just chilled it constantly.
You're like, okay, I won't read you the question.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, no, I want to read the question. Sometimes it helps when I read the question. Well, I'll just tell you the concept because reading the question really doesn't matter. Because it says using the blah blah object. And I give you a blah blah object. I define a blah blah object for you. And I say using this object. And who's the object? You're going to do something with it. And it's going to be a main program that you're writing with this object that I'm going to give to you. The object is defined a certain way. The object has certain characteristics associated with it. The object has all of its access methods and everything correctly in place. It's going to want you to do something with it. So now you got to figure out, what am I going to do with it? Well, what can you do with it, really? It's not going to be an inherit. I'm sure I'm not inheriting anything here. No, this is a main program code, but you're actually not even writing a whole main. You're asked to do 2 items with it. It's worth 5 points total, 2.5 for one, 2.5 for the other. But even 50-50 split. It's usually going to be like an all or nothing. Either you're going to get it or you're not going to get it. Because you're either going to know what you're supposed to do or you're not going to know what you're supposed to do. Imagine everything we did. It has nothing to do... Oh, by the way, there's no questions on Android. It's not an Android programming course. I brought up Android because it's Java programming, but no questions on mobile anything. No questions on Android. No questions on swing. You'll be happy to know. No, you did enough swing exercises in the assignments. This is just core Java. No questions on AWT. Did not mention anything on. None of these blah blahs had anything to do with AWT or swing or exception handling. I saved you. There's a lot. These are long topics. So all the miscellaneous stuff that I gave you, it's hopefully stuff that you'll hopefully use in your programming. But I'm not going to ask you trivia questions because that's just way too much content to ask you. If you know basic Java, you have basic Java skills, you'll ace this thing. It's not that hard. So number 26, you have to write some lines of code using an existing object that's given to you. You'll be obviously making an instance of it, doing something with it. The object is very simple. It's not a complex object. On question number 27, you're also doing something with the object that's in 26 and you're building on it. You're going to extend another object from it and you're going to do something with it. It's kind of like the midterm, but with not all the tedious writing. I'm going to give you a base object, assuming you can write a base object. You can write a base object. There's no doubt in my mind. Everyone in here can write a base object. You've done it at least 7 times. Plus, You did it 8th time on the midterm. Actually, you did it a couple. You inherited a couple classes on the midterm as well. You inherited many classes in your assignments. So I'm going to give you most of it. You're just going to write certain parts of it. So 26, I give you it. You're going to write some instance stuff related to it. You're going to make an object instance. You're going to do some stuff with it. 27, you're going to take the object and build on it a little bit. Inherit another class from it. Enhance it a little bit. Extend it. Yeah, you're going to extend it. I don't even think I even brought in. There's no abstract in it, and there's no interface in it either. It's fairly straightforward, actually. The exam is really easy. I think it's really easy. If you touched the language, if you wrote all 7 assignments yourself, you can cut and paste them off the internet. If you have basic Java programming skills, you'll find the exam humorous. And you'll be like, this is way too easy. If you've taken 2370 and you signed up for this class, but you don't really know Java, you're relying upon all your C++ skills, you're still going to think the exam is easy. And you're going to answer all the questions, and you're still going to think you've got all the correct, because there's correct answers for C++ on here as well. But you're in a Java course, so you're going to miss it because it applies to the wrong language. That's the nature of those multiple choice questions. The programming question, you either can write the source code or you can't write the source code. You're only given 1 page. You have the backs of the sheets if you need to, but I swear your answers will fit on this 1 page. It's not about this exam is not about volume source code writing. It's about testing to see if you know the basic concepts. And actually, believe it or not, that's all the concepts I have for you. There's nothing else I can really show you. I can post this underneath the video, actually. It's a text file. Yeah?
When is the final?
Oh, when is the final? The final is on Tuesday at the same class start time in the same room. They put it on Tuesday. No? Is it not Tuesday?
It's Tuesday.
Java's Tuesday. I hope not C++.
Yes, 3 different classes.
I have 3 different classes, that's what they're talking about. So, this group is in like 3 different sections of the different classes. Some students are. Let's look at the official schedule so there's no confusion at all. This is the only way I know how to find it. Final exam schedule. This is so small. What are we looking at? Summer 2013. Here it is. Look at that. Final exam schedule. Let's make this a little bit bigger. Ooh, that's bigger. Let's see. Final exam schedule for Tuesdays and Thursdays classes for September 3rd through the 8th, 2013. This class starts at 2 p.m. Yes, 2 p.m. It's on Tuesday at 2 p.m. So let me write this down, make sure I had told you. Tuesday. If you forget Tuesday, you're in luck. I have classes that meet on Thursday. You can wake up at 8 o'clock in the morning if you want to. Actually, you have to wake up around 6 o'clock if you're me and you're traveling from the South Bay to go to the East Bay. Or remind me, no, I'm in South, I think. If your class is starting before 9 o'clock a.m., if you miss the Thursday date, actually, the 8 o'clock in the morning class is pretty empty right now. I lost a few people. 8 o'clock is just too early in the morning for a lot of people. But if you want on Thursday at 8 o'clock in the morning, you can come in here and take the Java test. No, the assignments are still due on Tuesday. Oh. I'm going to bring all exams with me for all 3 classes. So if you're here and you want to take another test, by all means, if you're enrolled in the course, you may take the other test.
Take like 2 tests at the same time.
If you just want to take a test because you just like taking tests, you can take them anyway, but let me know so I can make some extra copies for you. I'm only bringing copies for the enough amount of students who are enrolled in these classes. But if you don't like Tuesday, actually, if you're just in this Java class, like I think you're not taking it here anyway, so if you're just in the Java class, you're not in any one of my other classes, and you don't want to take it Tuesday because you want a couple extra days of study, you can come in at 8 o'clock in the morning on Thursday if you want. Or you can come in at noon. I also have another class at noon. 12 o'clock noon. Same room, 8 o'clock in the morning or 12 o'clock in the morning or afternoon. I'm not in between 10 and 12. I'm in my office. I'm not going to be here in the room. But you can come in here and take one at 8, or you can take it, not a good choice, or you can take it at 12. I got plenty of extra chairs. I can accommodate everybody. The PLC course and the OS course, I lost a few at the midterm. They don't have as many students as this one does. This has got more students in it. So it's no problem if you guys want to come at the other time. Although you can't do that. It's better to show up on the day that the exam is offered because you don't want to miss it just in case you accidentally forget to show up on Thursday or something. You know, I've had students do this. And I think, you think, oh, they must be lying. No, they honestly forgot. They thought it was on a different day or something. So we don't have class on Thursday either. So brand new summer students, they always think there's class during the final exam. There's no class, it's just exams. So. Any other questions? That was a good question. If we don't have any other questions, oh, we have a question. Question from the back. No, I'm gonna get here probably about 2 o'clock. I'm just gonna come here for this test on Tuesday because I don't have the other two. The other two classes aren't meeting. I wish it were the opposite, actually. I wish it were done on Tuesday. But it's kind of early. If you like 8 a.m. better than 2, you can come on Thursday at 8. Anyway, that's the schedule. I'm sticking to it. See you next week sometime.